Welcome to Raise the Line with Osmosis.org, seeking solutions with leading experts on how to increase healthcare capacity so people can get the care they need during the COVID-19 crisis and beyond.
Hi, I'm Dr. Rishi Desai. As regular listeners to Raise the Line have heard many times over and over again from medical educators we've interviewed, the pandemic has caused significant changes to medical education in the U.S. and around the world. One of the most impactful has been the integration of online learning and increased use of other educational technology. Now, our guest today is well equipped to help us understand the impact of this change and how technology can impact student retention, engagement, and satisfaction. Dr. Masha Gouzman-Allouche is senior teacher of the Faculty of Medicine at Tel Aviv University, where she's responsible for improving how teaching and learning is happening. She's also a researcher on the topic, has taught several medical schools and students around Israel. Dr. Allouche, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you so much.
So let's start with learning a little bit more about you. What got you interested in medicine and specifically medical education?
Well, I think I've always felt that working with people makes me happy. In my mandatory military service, I served as a social worker for soldiers. And after that, I was eager to start studying, but I couldn't decide between my high school lab, biology, and the subject always I like to read about, psychology. So luckily for me, the Hebrew University of Jerusalem offered a merged degree, psychobiology, and I enrolled for those studies. And as I proceed with my studies, I like very much the down-to-earth biological explanations to human psychological processes. So how the human body works, it fascinated me, and I felt that biology is more suitable path for me to explore. So after my bachelor's degree, I pursued a PhD in biology in the Faculty of Medicine. And I felt that this is really the right place for me to be. And also during the doctorate studies, I applied to a teaching assistant position. And I taught throughout the whole degree, and I loved it very much. I loved to watch the aha moments in the students' eyes, and I felt that they enjoy learning from me. And I could feel how to guide them in the way that would spark their curiosity. So I really loved it. And although I liked also doing the biological research, it was clear to me that the teaching is my main passion, and it comes to me much more naturally. And teaching about health and illness, even more thrilling. So then later I was offered to teach for also nurse degrees in several colleges. I accepted and became a lecturer. And my PhD thesis in epigenetics, it wasn't very clinically oriented. But in my teaching, I worked with many different populations, medical students, nurse students. Also, they were secular students and Orthodox Jewish female students. All of them wanted to be relevant in their studies and have practical applications to the field of studies. So I decided more and more to dedicate time to independently study about the world of medicine and learning about clinical cases and dilemmas that the doctors faced. And this is a really fascinating field. This is not white and black. This is a very great area usually. And I love to facilitate discovery of this work to students. And I also have to say that my love for teaching has family roots. And my dad is, among many other things, is a professor. And he also was a school teacher for many years. And later in life, he taught in colleges. And I have been always impressed how his students loved him and kept in touch with him for many years after they finished school, even across ocean, actually. So it was a big impression on me too, and I think it inspired me.
That's fantastic. And it sounds like you've had so many of those aha moments where you were able to kind of watch your students light up and pass some sort of difficulty. I'm curious for you, especially with your father as a teacher, what was your experience like as a student? Like, did you feel like you had teachers in your life that were mentors for you that, you know, other than your father, of course, that helped you guide how you like to teach or your teaching style?
For sure, there were several of them, and I was happy to be their student. But I have to go back to my father, I think, and say thanks to him, because he really was the one that showed me how to spark those aha moments. I grew up in Soviet Russia, and my father became a high school teacher to avoid working with KGB, actually, because it was the way to run away from
Oh, wow. Quite a story.
Yeah, and it was really different reality compared to the one that I live right now. The six of us lived in a small one-bedroom apartment, and I remember my dad was writing his doctorate dissertation about the proximal development in children, and he was doing it on a refrigerator in the kitchen because there was no place for a table. So I saw his love for what he was doing, for teaching and for learning about how to teach, and he put really all his soul in it. And officially he taught physics, but I admired the most for the summer camps that he was creating for his students. And during those vacations, they would travel from Moscow to a rural area for one whole month to experience field work and take part of different activities like sailing and skiing and nature exploration. And my family would join, also me. And in these magnificent settings, I think my father taught the student about friendship and leadership and critical thinking and curiosity about life. And this was very inspiring. And also he ran a movie club where he taught how to watch and actually see movies and appreciate the art of it. And as a little girl, I went to school with him, and also I traveled with him, and I saw how students learn for him. And the mark that it left on me of the teacher who really cares about his students and how they grow as a human being and how they're really interested in knowing more and more, this was powerful for me. And his passion for the subjects that he taught, it was really important to light the curiosity in them.
Just hearing you speak about your father, I'm getting chills and I'm seeing your face light up. I mean, I just imagine his students light up as well. Just that kind of person that cares so deeply is profoundly impactful in a person's life.
For sure, because later in life, the students, when he was 75 years ago, they came for his birthday, 70 years old, big date. And across the seas from United States, from Russia, they came to Israel and celebrated with him. And as a birthday present, they gave him tickets for him and his mother to United States to travel from coast to coast in houses of his former students.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah, it was so, I think then you do something right and then you get this feedback, you feel you really, your life was well done.
Well, I mean, it also brings up the fact that you as a teacher, you've been a professor of physiology, pharmacology, you're walking in big shoes then, right? Like you've seen this greatness unfold in front of you and now you're walking your own path. I'm curious, what has that been like for you personally, like knowing that you have these, maybe a genetic or a nurture component to your teaching as well, but you're charting your own path here as well. What has that been like for you?
Yes, he is a source of inspiration, but as you say, I try to go on my own path, and not as a high school teacher, but a teacher in a university. And being university teacher it's different. Students are more autonomous and grown up already, and in many cases, the classes are much larger. It's 200, 300, sometimes 500 students in lecture hall. So lecturers, until recently, the hands were tired, not be able to get to each and one student personally. And I think because of technology, things are changing right now. We can set lectures, and I can set myself a little bit more free from those limitations and teach more student-centered, deliver more active learning, and transform actually our roles from being sage on the stage all the time to being actually guide on the side that we believe now it's a better learning process for students. So when I think of what I would like to put in my work and to be a good teacher, I believe we need everyone need to find what's it in for him. Some can be with fantastic sense of humor and really helps engage students' attention and motivation. Some are really masters of creating a very special, inclusive atmosphere in the class, and some are great at storytelling. So for me, I chose, I think, the storytelling and really caring about the students. It helps me to feel that I'm doing my job well. And I also try to know my audience, what they know and what we don't know at the beginning, and how can I lead them to the point that I want them to be after the studying process, and to sense them on the way. and to put effort all the time in evolving as a teacher, because there are a lot of new practices all around, and you can talk to so many wonderful teachers all over the world. Right now, it's even easier because Zoom is now so available, and you can just ask for someone for advice or to share his knowledge with you. And a lot of times it's a really interesting conversation that's coming out of it, and you learn a lot. So learning a lot and being curious myself, I think it's important for me as a teacher.
With COVID, a lot of lectures have been given, as online, and you mentioned earlier kind of that aha moment for students. I'm curious, has that changed in terms of like how it is doing things remotely versus an in-person interaction for you?
Yes, I think it did. When COVID started and we all went online, I felt a big change for two of my heads. I actually have two heads in faculty. One is the lecturer teaching students, and the other one is a promoter of teaching novel techniques in the faculty. So in the head of teacher that you asked, I felt that it was easy to go online because I already had experience blended courses before COVID. Actually, we developed with my co-workers, colleagues from the department, a very innovative, I would say, in that at that time course. So it was a big pharmacology course, and it was based on a flipped classroom approach. And each unit inside this course, it had three different parts. The first part was interactive reading. The second part would be watching videos that were also interactive, very short and very precise videos that lecturers made from the material that they would usually teach in front of the class in the lecture hall. But those now would be learned at home at a pace and time and place that student choose for himself. And later on, we would meet in class. And during these meetings, we would ask students to be more active learners. Actually, they already have prepared at home and know some of the material. And in meetings, we would discuss with them different case studies, play games to encourage the active learning of what they already studied at home and deepen the analysis of the things. And also then COVID began, I felt that we only needed to find a solution for this part of the course to go online. We found that turning a physical synchronous class meeting into online synchronous class meeting even had some advantages. This stemmed from the nature of our synchronous meetings. They were not classic lecturers, but rather involved group work and active learning through games. So the transition to an online setting made the logistics much more simpler. We did not need to schedule rooms. We could easily divide students in really small 4-person groups and in breakout room. And this would allow collaborate problem solving and contests, really games that we would encourage them to play in order to make it more fun. But of course, there were difficulties, much more about the interperson enthusiasm that I can create and I'm there in the class. And I felt that I am not so well doing it online. It's really hard, much more difficult to get to students through screen. And also, a lot of students had wanted to maintain their privacy and all. So there was black screens in Zoom, and you don't see those eyes, those sparkling eyes that it's so important to me. And you don't see the smiles from the other side that they understand. And it was really devastating for me. So I would always encourage them to open this part of them and to see some of the eyes, that how they are doing. And also I spent less time in university, and I felt the disconnection because there were fewer students in the university and I would less spoke with them, and the fewer familiar names and faces, and everything was more technical and dry, really less human. And I feel that the learning experience, much like the teaching experience, was shallower and less powerful. So when it was possible, most of us wanted to go back to the campus.
That's really interesting, and certainly I think there's something about being physically around other people that is also very invigorating and energizing, especially when you're learning something difficult, like medicine. Yourself, you've often been attracted to technology and how technology can help improve education. On the flip side, right now we see a lot of focus on the negatives of social media, other types of applications of technology like big tech and all that, not just around like privacy, but also like how it kind of transforms people into basically just consumers, right? Like just consuming content. What do you tell faculty that are kind of averse to technology because of that side of it,
Mm-hmm.
and may not want to use technology in education? What sort of approach do you take with faculty like that?
Well, I usually show them what can be done, not forcing anyone, just to show. And I also say that I believe that educational technology, it's much more, it would be do good. In every technology, you can do bad and good, right? You can evolve to something that you don't expect. But in universities, when you use some technology inside the universities or colleges, usually there are a lot of eyes looking on it to decide that this technology is really the right solution. Also, from a privacy point of view, the companies must convey really strict guidelines. I feel much safer around educational technology inside the universities. And also, I would say that, well, yes, some of the privacy is now less because we can see how students proceed and how well we are doing when we use the technology to answer questions, for example. But on the other hand, this is something for letting them progress much better, maybe in a more personalized way. So I like to show what there is to do with technology and then let them decide what they believe more and what they want to try and what they decide not to use.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm also curious then how, stepping out, we're also going through COVID, and that has accelerated a lot of the push towards using these technologies.
Mm-hmm.
What have you noticed in terms of other changes? I mean, you mentioned remote learning, people rushing back to the campus as soon as they could. Have there been any changes that you think are going to be long-standing? Like things that now that we're here, we're probably not going to go back to doing it that other way. Have you seen anything like that in your experience?
Totally. I felt that this global pandemic, because all of us needed now to make a change, a really, really big change. We were forced to it and there was no other choice. So I felt that the global transformation opened lecturers' minds to use the novel tools for teaching. And I felt it was a unique momentum, actually, that everyone involved in teaching felt. COVID was a catalyst for processes of innovation. Suddenly, I felt that most of the lecturers want to at least hear what they can do new, at least try to understand what is there to see. And also the management board, at least at our faculty, it spent significant funds on technology, among which was Osmosis purchasing also, with the goal to create a new culture of teaching that enables more active learning. And on the faculty level, the dean, the head of the school, presenting the vision to the faculty and presenting the tools that were at the disposal of the lecturers. So it seems that there is much more awareness and openness to innovative teaching today. And usually, it takes many years for innovation to take its place in the world. There is this curve of innovations in society.
Yeah.
First, there are a few people who are inventors, and once there is a new technology available, there are those who embrace it quickly, the early adapters, and then there is a need to recruit the early majority.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will not
Yeah.
stay in this world. So I really hope that the early majority now is evolving, and the teaching processes are changing in a bigger way.
We're a teaching company, and obviously you're coming from a teaching family. We like to fill knowledge gaps. I'm curious, is there any topic that you'd like to educate us on that you think everyone ought to know? And it can be anything that you think is relevant.
Well, I was talking this week with one of my colleagues in faculty, and she told me about the struggle that she had. She told me that she really likes active learning and she thinks it's really important to bring it to students. But then she tries to bring it to her class. She gets a feedback that it's actually waste of time from the student points of view, and they like much better the classical lectures. She said, what do? I feel I put so much energy in it. It's not easy to create active learning. And then I get this feedback. And I told her that actually she is in a good company because there is an interesting article by Del Rey and Al that shed some light on this situation. It's called the Measuring Actual Learning versus Feeling of Learning in response to being actively engaged in the classroom. So in this work, they showed that the students perceive that they learn more from classic lecture compared to active learning than in fact, the opposite was true. They divided the class into groups, in A and B, and they studied two topics in two different methods. One was active learning, trying to solve problems in groups, while teacher was going from table to table and explaining, and only in the end, they would give them the solution and the explanation. And the second one was the didactic lecture, classical one, without active learning. And group A studied the first topic actively and the second passively, and group B vice versa. At the end of class, they asked students to answer a survey, and in the survey, they were asked how much they felt they have learned from the class. At the end, they took also a short test of their knowledge that would show how much they learned from the class. And the results showed that students thought that they learned more from the lectures, but actually they were doing better on tests after active learning process. So to explain these results, the article says there are several factors that could do the explanation. The cognitive fluency of the lecturer that misleads the students to think they learn more. And this happens even more with novice students. And so they are not very good judges of their learning process. And also students a lot of times mistake a cognitive struggle that they have for an inferior learning process, while actually it's a sign of effective learning process. And I think, and they think in the article that it's very important to explain this situation to students before active learning classes, and so that it will increase their motivation and engagement in the actual active learning. And I hope this will help the students in our audience to appreciate active learning, and the teachers in our audience not to give up on better teaching. So.
Wow, that's a pretty huge point that you just brought up. So I mean, this if I can recap what I'm hearing, students thought that they had a better learning experience when they were learning passively. They said that, they reported that, but in fact the opposite were true. And also you notice that discrepancy more with the naive learners, the younger learners, than with the more expert learners, the more senior learners. Is that accurate?
Well, the explanation why was that actually, as a student, as a novice student, you have poorer metacognition about the process of your learning. And this is why it probably happens with novice even more.
And the problem with that, the challenge with that is that now when let's say we do surveys, we say, hey, how much did you learn? And someone says, oh, I went from a 2 to a 6, or I went from 1 to a 5. Well, if you're telling me that oftentimes people are not good judges of their own learning, right, then it really calls into question those kinds of results taken in isolation. Obviously, if there are other data points, then you can put together a story that may be more strong. But that sole sort of self-reflection, that self-evaluation may not always be reliable because, like what you just said, that they actually may be scoring lower the more useful parts, the more active learning. So that's interesting. Wow, that's a big deal.
Yes, so a lot of time as teachers, we want to know what students think about our teaching, and it is important because there is a lot of things to learn from this criticism. And every time I finish the class, I read what they have to say and I try to see how I improve. But also you have to have in mind that not everything that what they feel is good for them is really good for them. So you have to explore yourself the literature to see what is the better teaching ways.
That was fantastic. Let me ask you one final question then. In terms of our audience, a lot of folks will look at your career and aspire to it or find it inspirational. What advice do you have for students out there that may be listening, early career health professionals that may be listening, about how to approach their career in healthcare?
I think that right now, learning, one of the points that it's hard to us to do while COVID is around is learning together. I think that distancing and lack of human connection is one of the challenges for students, and they should be proactive to try to solve it, because not all these universities do it fast enough to solve this problem for them. So really trying to organize learning groups and get to know each other and study in a collaborative way, it's important. And also another point that I want to address is for just approaching the career in healthcare is that I think the lifelong learning is really important, because I notice sometimes an interesting transformation that happens to people, including myself actually sometimes, that they put on a student head and many try to figure out how to get a good grade on an exam with minimum effort. Mm-hmm. This is the way, for some reason, some students think once they put this head. Once they put a teacher head, it switches, but in a student head, it goes like that. But sometimes I do see students with light in their eyes and the curiosity, a natural one, that love to learn. And I think they're so lucky to have this already in the beginning and not later in life. So I think once you embrace it, you're becoming much more happier through this period of studying, and also, of course, much better as a specialist in the future. So I think one of the important things is to learn also about communication and compassion, because in this profession, I believe it will be the future, because there is artificial intelligence that's coming really strong in this field, and it will be the help of every doctor really soon already, but much more really soon. And I think that the niche that the doctors probably would have beside artificial intelligence is the niche of the humanity and the warmth and the motivation for patients. Many processes, it will be different because of the AI, but this human thing, we need to put attention on it and learn it, because I believe some of us maybe have it more from the beginning, but every one of us can learn it deeper and pay attention on this.
That's a phenomenal way to end it, thinking first about empathy and compassion, and secondly about kind of the didactics and then the concrete nuts and bolts of it. Because there's a quote that I like: if they think that you care, then they'll care what you think.
That's a fantastic quote.
Yeah, and that's the key. Like, you have to make people recognize that you care about them as human beings before they kind of care about what you're trying to teach them. And so I guess with that, I want to thank you. Thank you for joining us and talking us through kind of your personal story, what drove you into teaching, and your philosophy. I think it's very inspirational.
Thank you so much. It was a real pleasure for me too.
Well, I'm Rishi Desai. Thank you for checking out today's show. Remember to do your part to flatten the curve and raise the line. We're all in this together.
For more information on how you can help raise the line and flatten the curve, go to osmosis.org/COVID-19. If you like this podcast, please share it on your social channels. You can also subscribe to the series and check out all of our podcasts at osmosis.org/Raise the Line Podcast.